Sessions will come to order. Would you take roll, please?
Sure. Henderson? Here. Berger? Beck? Here. Black? Here. Bratton? Crawford? Here. Nicola? Here. Nurrenbern? Here. There's a quorum.
A quorum has been established. I move that we go into an executive session. Do I have a second?
Second.
Ask for a voice vote. All in favor?
Aye.
All opposed? And the ayes have it. Senate Bill 896. I move that we take up Senate Bill 896. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the ayes have it. This is the bill we heard last week from Senator Brown. Some of you may have heard a little bit. It's dealing with the election. There was a section in there that the county clerks maybe had a little bit of an issue. I think is being worked out. I've heard from the county clerks, and they're going to be okay with it. They got the word of Senator Brown that they're going to work this out. And I got a thing from the people that represent the clerks saying that they're good with it. So we're going to go ahead and move this out. And before it comes to the floor in the Senate, this will be worked out. Questions? Yes?
Really just more of a comment. I'm going to vote for it today with the assumption that we do get it worked out. So I'm a yes today, and I mean, I have confidence in Senator Brown that he'll get it worked out, but I'm not really pleased with the way it is right now, but I think we can get there.
Senator, I'm in the exact same place, and I told him the same thing, and I think maybe there's some more in here in the same place as that. But I have his word he's going to work it out, and the clerks they've told me they feel good about it, so I'm going to try to move it forward. Did I already make a motion to move it? Okay. Now, I want to move to adopt the substitute. Do I have a second? All those in favor say aye. Those opposed? And the ayes have it. Is there any discussion on the substitute? Seeing none. All those in favor of adopting the substitute say aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I now move that we vote on Senate Bill 896 with Senate committee substitute out of committee do pass. Do I have a second? Is there any discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Henderson?
Aye.
Berger? Aye.
By your vote of 5-2, you've now do passed it. We take up Senate Bill 975. I move that we take up Senate Bill 975. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. Aye. All those opposed? The ayes have it. This is the bill we heard 2 weeks ago from Senator Blackham. We're taking the underlying bill here. The other part of that bill was mine. We're still trying to work that out. So we're going to take just the original bill, not the substitute. I want to make that clear. We're not taking the substitute, just the underlying bill dealing with ambulance services. And I now move that we vote Senate Bill 975 out of committee do pass. Do I have a second? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Henderson?
Aye.
Berger? Aye.
7-0. By your vote of 7-0, you have do pass Senate Bill 975. We now take up Senate Bill 1023. I move that we take up Senate Bill 1023. Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor say aye. All those opposed say no. And the ayes have it. This is a bill we heard last week from Senator Brown relating to sales tax for public libraries. We do have a committee substitute. Let me explain that a little bit. The committee substitute has a part in from Senator May. I think Senator Beck may be able to explain this.
Thank you, Senator. So yes, this simply Senator May put a piece of legislation in here that would raise increased to $20 from $15 for the law library in the city of St. Louis. We've been trying to get this accomplished for many years on a bipartisan level, and this will be in there. And I've been asked by others, Senator Trent, some others, to do this. So, but anyway, I think it's a good part of this bill. So that's what this does.
Okay, thank you. And I also know Jackson County is already doing this, and it's $15 everywhere, so they're just raising it and getting in line with Jackson County. Senator Nicola like that. Okay, I move that we adopt the substitute. I move that we adopt the substitute. Do I have a second? Is there any discussion on the substitute? Seeing none, all those in favor of adopting the substitute say aye. Aye. All those opposed say no. The ayes have it. I now move that we vote Senate Bill 1023 with Senate committee substitute out of committee do pass. Do I have a second? Second. Is there any discussion? Madam Secretary, please call the roll.
Henderson,
Aye.
Berger,
Aye.
By your vote of 6-1, you have do pass 1023. I now move we move out of executive session into public session.
Second.
Second. All those in favor say aye. The ayes have it. Okay, the first bill up today. Senator Hough, 843. Senator Hough, whenever you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Appreciate everyone coming to Jefferson City today. I was thinking about that. I don't normally come up on Mondays, and I understand you very quickly, Mr. Chairman, dismissed the opportunity to have this hearing on a Tuesday. So we are here Monday afternoon. Appreciate that, being 70-some degrees in Springfield when I could be doing literally anything else other than working with this fine committee on passing land banks. So this is legislation that was actually enacted a couple of years ago, was on the books for a year before the Supreme Court threw this out on a local omnibus bill, and so obviously then lost all the provisions of this. Originally, so the quick history lesson on land banks, and actually the resident historian, the Honorable Representative Bill Owen is with us today. I doubt that he'll be testifying because we don't normally do that, but if he wants to grab any of the committee members afterwards and fill them in, he is a wealth of knowledge on this topic. Originally, land banks were only in 3 communities, St. Joe, Kansas City, and the city of St. Louis. This legislation seeks to expand that to every portion of the state. It originally started as just a Springfield thing, and then we got interest from a lot of folks around the state, and it's now a much broader piece of legislation. The only reason your committee substitute is 68 pages instead of the original 5 that was filed is that the provisions that change the application statewide, and then specifically for the city or the county of St. Louis County, cover several sections of our state statute. So there are references throughout, and so that's why this thing got as big as it is. But that's the short version. I'm more than happy, Mr. Chairman, to answer any questions, and again, appreciate the committee coming.
So just to remind everybody, we're doing it on the substitute. I think you have the substitute. So any questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody to testify in support, please come forward. Make sure you've turned in your witness form. And proceed when you're ready.
Thank you. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, for the record, my name is Jason Zamkus. I'm a registered lobbyist on behalf of the Missouri Association of Realtors. We'd like to go on record in support of this legislation. It provides a valuable tool to local communities to help protect property values and preserve communities. And for that reason, we support the bill.
Questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else to testify in support, please come forward.
Chairman and committee members, my name is Pat Kelly. I'm the Executive Director of the Municipal League of Metro St. Louis. I want to go on record in support of Senate Bill 843. This was passed several years ago, as mentioned. It took 2 years in the making to get it to that point. Had a lot of good language in there to improve the process for land banks, and most importantly, the ability to clear titles faster, which then helps us get these non-producing properties back on the tax roll. So we'd appreciate your support.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else to testify in support?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chairman, members of the committee. Richard Sheets with the Missouri Municipal League, and we want to go and support, on record, support SB 843. I can't make any more comments than what's been made. It's a good bill, and we had a lot of work on it in the past. I'll try to answer any questions if I can.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else to testify in support?
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, Will Mars on behalf of the City of Springfield, just want to go on record and support. A lot of compromises to get this legislation where it is, and I just want to thank the Senator for bringing this forward.
You're welcome, Will.
Thanks.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else to testify in support?
Mr. Chairman, David Winton here on behalf of St. Louis County. I want to thank the sponsor, committee, go on record in support of the bill.
Any questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Anybody else to testify in support? Seeing none. Anybody to testify in opposition? Please come forward. Proceed when you're ready.
We're usually on the same side.
Sorry. Lisa Panett, Arborvine. We have been opposed to this bill since it passed the first time, and we were happy when the courts threw it out. So we just continue to stand on that, and we don't like, there's a lot of parts to this bill, but I didn't see the 68-page sub, so I can't speak into what that is, but I can speak to the original bill and how they were able to buy up adjacent properties that weren't even foreclosed on. So now we're getting the government into the business of just buying property for no reason at all, other than it's close to another one. So for these reasons and many, many more, in the original, we're opposed.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else to testify in opposition? Seeing none. Anybody for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator Hough, you have any?
I do not. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Our next bill up today, we will have Senator Brown and Senator Nurrenbern presenting Senate Bill 1066 and 1088, doing it together. So when you're ready, please proceed.
For the record, my name is Senator Ben Brown from the 26th District, and I'd like to thank the committee for the opportunity to present Senate Bill 1066. Senate Bill 1066 is aimed at addressing the rise of an unfair and what I believe to be an unlawful practice of reclassifying single-family short-term rental homes as commercial property. In recent years, a handful of counties have utilized this practice in an attempt to tax these properties at a commercial rate of 32% rather than the residential rate of 19%. This has dealt a significant financial blow to the owners of these properties, which can often sit vacant and in some cases are dependent on seasonal activity to keep their investment afloat. Unfortunately, this disturbing money grab seems to have become only more prevalent in recent years. These single-family homeowners have decided to rent their home or vacation homes in the same manner as owners of long-term rental properties, which are always classified as the residential rate, yet have not faced the same attempt at reclassification by county officials. Missouri case law, federal tax code, and IRS rules all confirm that using a single-family residence as a short-term rental does not justify changing its classification from residential to commercial. The common theme, it's the activity at the property that determines what tax classification they fall under. Any income generated from a short-term rental is exclusively through residential activity, just as with long-term rentals. The only difference is the length of stay. Given that the same activity occurs in both short-term and long-term rentals, there's no legal justification to tax them differently. On the other hand, businesses such as hotels are zoned as commercial due to the fact that they generate revenue through numerous other commercial activities separate from simply renting a room. These would include revenue generated through restaurants, bars, spas, conventions, parking, etc., etc. In addition, if a hotel owner were to sell a property, they can do so at a commercial price, whereas any short-term rental property would be sold at a residential rate. This also mirrors zoning requirements, where, for instance, if a hotel were to burn down, it could be replaced with a Quick Trip or any other sort of commercial business. However, in the case of a residence used as a short-term rental, it would be zoned as residential and therefore could only be replaced with another residential property. This bill would ensure our property classification structure is consistent statewide, in line with federal tax code, IRS rules, and zoning requirements that have been established through Missouri case law. In a 2006 case, Mullen v. Silver Creek Condominium Owners, Missouri's Southern District Court of Appeals upheld that residential, not commercial, was the appropriate classification of short-term rentals. This case was addressing an attempt to define short-term rentals as non-residential or quote-unquote commercial use in regards to zoning, a notion that was resoundingly rejected by the court. In the ruling, the court argued that differentiating short-term from long-term rentals was arbitrary and unenforceable since both are used for residential purposes such as sleeping, eating, and dwelling. This position has been reaffirmed in similar cases in other states as well. In Houston v. Wilson Mesa Ranch Homeowners Association in 2015, the key finding of the Colorado Court of Appeals was, and I quote, "Receipt of income does not transform residential use into commercial use. Although residential unambiguously refers to use for living purposes, courts have recognized ambiguity in the term in cases involving short-term rentals or other situations where those residing in the property are living there only temporarily, not permanently." And they include citation from another case, Yogman v. Perot. We're going to go with Perot. Might be butchering that, but we're just going with it. They go on to say, moreover, if the phrase residential purposes carries with it a duration of use component, it is ambiguous as to when a rental of the property moves from short-term to long-term, this time citing another additional case law, Dunn v. Amote. The residential classification of short-term rentals is also consistent with the IRS classification of such properties. In IRS publication 527, there are two classifications of rental properties discussed in code. You have non-residential real property, that includes hotels, etc., then what they define as residential rental property. Residential rental property, it's defined as a class that includes any real property that is a rental building or structure for which 80% or more of the gross rental income for the tax year is from dwelling units. Both short-term and long-term rental properties fit within this definition and are therefore both classified as such. However, it does not include a unit in a hotel, motel inn, or other establishment where significant income is generated from other activity. Non-residential real property, on the other hand, does include properties like a hotel, motel inn, or other establishment because they do receive a substantial amount of revenue from other sources such as the restaurant, bars, and other activities that I previously mentioned. Clearly, that the handful of assessors who have decided to reclassify short-term rentals as commercial are in fact directly in conflict with not only established Missouri case law, federal tax code, and IRS rules, but I would also argue that they are also in violation of Missouri statute as currently written. People deserve fairness and consistency in regard to property classifications in this state. Clarity is needed, and I believe this bill to be a no-brainer. This is likely why it received widespread bipartisan support, passing the House with a vote of 118 to 34, and out of this very same committee with a unanimous vote just last session. I hope that the committee joins me again in supporting Senate Bill 1066 and would be happy to answer any questions.
Okay, I'll go ahead and present. First of all, Senator Brown did a really great job in providing the background on this legislation and the why it is needed. I also think our Representative Chris Brown for championing this in the House, and all the folks who have come today to make their case as to why we need to get this done, and hopefully this legislative session. So for the record, I'm State Senator Maggie Nurrenbern, representing District 17 in Clay County, here to present Senate Bill 1088. As you all are very well aware, the World Cup is coming to Kansas City this summer. Our city and the nearly 600,000 guests we are expecting will rely on short-term rentals to help us meet the demand for lodging. This bill will ensure that the people in Kansas City and the surrounding regions who take advantage of this unique opportunity by renting out their homes or their extra property will not be punished by being assessed at a commercial rate. Quite frankly, we need more people willing to come forward to rent out their properties to ensure a successful World Cup. My bill differs just very slightly from Senate Bill 1066, and on page 1, line 14 and 15, this language was a compromise made by this committee last year to ensure that only sole proprietors, individuals, partnerships, or LLCs are covered by this legislation. And with that, we're happy to answer any questions.
Any questions for either sponsor at this point? Senator Nicola, proceed.
Senators, thank you so much for bringing this legislation. It's just like you said, Senator Brown, it's common sense, and I appreciate it. Thank you very much for this.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody to testify in support, please come forward. Turn in your witness form if you don't mind, and proceed when you're ready.
Good afternoon. My name is Sean Smith. I am a Jackson County legislator. Wanted to bring to the committee's attention that last year, 2025, our assessor, without notification to the legislative body or the State Tax Commission, chose to reclassify residential properties that had been previously classified as residential to commercial. The first time that anybody heard of this was when they received their assessment notice. So to put that into perspective, imagine you're running a business, whether it's a small business or a large business. You're halfway through the year, you've budgeted for your taxes, you've set your rates accordingly, and suddenly your taxes are going to go up by 2/3. That's what our residents were faced with, or our short-term rental operators were faced with. We, as a legislative body, unanimously passed legislation in a fairly short order. So May 19th it was introduced, and by early June it was passed unanimously to reverse that. But what it highlighted to me was some of the circumstances under which people rent their homes. I had people contact me who, for example, temporarily rented out their home while they went to take care of a family member who was in hospice and ending the end of their life. The other thing that it pointed out to me was how arbitrary an assessor might do this, in the sense that there were certain municipalities within Jackson County who had an ordinance that said you had to be licensed. She was able to obtain those licensing information, but other operators, she couldn't tell if they were a short-term rental operator or not. Still, other people had applied for a permit in the city of Kansas City because there was going to be a moratorium on them someday, and they just wanted to be sure that they could rent their property out someday if they chose to. She reclassified those as well. So we were able to reverse it, but I think all this shows that state law does need to reflect clear and concise policy that allows for homeowners and business owners to be able to plan accordingly and make financial decisions accordingly. That's all I have. Thank you.
Any questions for this witness? Senator Nicola.
Thank you so much, Sean, for coming today. I appreciate it, and thank you for all the work you've done for our citizens and property owners of Jackson County. Appreciate it very much.
Thank you, Senator.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much. Anybody else to testify in support?
I have this here.
Proceed when you're ready.
Okay. Hi, my name is Laura Williams, and I'm a short-term rental owner in Kansas City, Missouri. I was actually one of the owners that was affected when Jackson County reclassified our taxes. I support myself and my 75-year-old mother through owning and operating short-term rentals in Kansas City, Missouri. I want to just give a real-life example of just how devastating this tax was. I had a small bungalow, 750 square feet in Waldo, Kansas City, probably worth around $200,000. My taxes went from $2,000 a year to $7,000 a year. I had another property that me and my partner bought in 2020 for $350,000, which might be worth less now. My taxes on that property went from $5,000 a year to $15,000 a year. And it was utterly devastating. I don't know what I would have done if Sean Smith hadn't passed the emergency ordinance. We would have been forced to sell the properties and not even participate in the World Cup. And that's one of the worst things about this tax, is because the property tax reassessment cycle is every 2 years. So, for example, if Sean hadn't passed the emergency ordinance and I wanted to participate in the World Cup and then sell or shut down, I would have been stuck with those higher taxes. Like, who's going to buy my Waldo property with a $7,000 tax on it when my neighbor has a $2,000 tax for the same property? My properties are zoned residential. They're not zoned commercial. And with my license in Kansas City, Missouri, I can't have a wedding on my property. I can't rent it out for films or shoots or charge anything extra. I can't even have more than 8 people on the property. There is no way for me to recoup those costs, with a commercial tax. I'm having commercial taxes without any of the commercial benefits. And so I just wanted to let you guys know, from a real life owner, that these taxes are just completely devastating. I mean, short-term rentals have been around for 2010. You get used to a certain way that things are done and things are taxed, and all of a sudden to have the rules changed after you've put your life savings into something to support yourself. And I'm not the only person. There's other people, like hundreds of us in this situation. And we're small business people. We're not corporations. The average short-term rental owner owns 1.4 rentals. Okay, we have like 1 property, 2 properties. We're people a school teacher that wants to rent her house out for a month so she can travel to Europe. We're people that are supporting family members. We're people that maybe there's a family home that somebody wants to keep in their family and they want to short-term rental it to, help pay the mortgage. I mean, it was really, really devastating. So I really hope that you guys pass this bill. I would like I would like to know that I'm going to be okay. I'd like to know that the rug is not going to get pulled out from underneath me. I would like to, there's other people that want to know that too. It causes problems also with our mortgage. I have a mortgage on a rental property. I don't have a commercial property. I don't even know, having all this happen, what kind of devastating benefits it's going to have. But I really, really beg you guys to please pass this. It's very, very important, and it's life and death to a lot of us. So thank you so much.
Just any
yes,
questions for the witness? Senator Nicola.
Thank you so much for taking time out of your day to come and testify, and I apologize for everything that's happened to you. Every time we talk about property taxes, especially in Jackson County, my head turns red and my blood pressure goes up because of what's been done to our property owners. So I thank you very much for coming and testifying, and I'm hopeful that we'll get something rectified permanently for our residents.
Yeah, I really appreciate that. Thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. And then thank you to everybody that has put this bill forward. Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Next person in favor.
Sorry about the Darth Vader machine, but it's what it is. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Sam Licklider here appearing for Missouri Realtors, and I frankly stand in awe of the people who have come before me. This is one of the finest presentations of a problem I've ever seen, and that goes back a ways. We support the bill. It is absolutely ridiculous what they have done to these people. I probably have a pretty good idea where that bungalow in Waldo is because I grew up in Waldo. And the $7,000 taxes, my mother paid $10,000 for the house we lived in on McGee in '48. So there's been some time there. I will get my homework done and give it back to you all. But that's it. We support it, and this testimony has been absolutely superb.
Any questions for the witness? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you. And thank you.
Anybody else in support? Turn in your witness form, and then you can proceed when you're ready.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. My name is Alex Zimianik, and I'm founder and CEO of JZ Vacation Rentals and a proud Missourian over the last 20-plus years. 7 years ago, I faced bankruptcy for the first time when this reclassification started, and this process started in St. Louis. 200 letters went out. There's 2,000 short-term rentals at the time, so only 10% of the class was being targeted. 100% of my short-term rentals, whether they're long-term rentals, furnished rentals, unfurnished rentals, 100% of the time for the last 7 years, every other year, gets reclassified, including the one that I lived in. And 2021, or I actually appealed that first one in 2019, and I won, just simply on the argument of discrimination and the Constitution for not having a permitting or registration process. 2021, we reassessed again. 2020 was a pandemic. I started immediately going into midterm, which just means furnished or unfurnished. 2023, the losses were unsustainable. We went from 40 properties to 8, and the only reason I'm still here today is because I now manage hotels in Denver. And I got out of Missouri for the most part. I've dwindled down to about 12 in the city limits. 8 of those, I went to the Board of Equalization hearing not long ago with the interim assessor. And when I presented my case to the interim assessor, there was 2 parcels, one that I lived in for 3 years. Still to this day, we have not been able to get that overturned so I can refi. And then the other one that was a long-term rental for SLU students for the last 5 years. They actually turned down the appeal, and it took multiple emails, resources in my relationship with Sean to get him to eventually make the right call and change it due to January 1st having proof that it was not listed as a short-term rental. When I asked the assessor why I'm 100% reassessed regardless of what happens, I asked for the due diligence, and he said, you know, it's a very tough process. We roll up our sleeves. We sometimes have to go property to property. They'll walk the yards. They will intrude into the yard, and then they will go listing by listing and handpick. So when I asked him, well, doesn't that seem like I'm discriminated as being a professional, somebody that has a brand with a website? He said, I would agree with that. I said, well, what about the financial implications to the city, the state? Because right now, St. Louis is now going to have an additional tax. So we're going to be at 19.929 lodging tax. So every time that this reclassification happens, the city loses that, what is going to be up to 20%, which means that we're now 3% over the hotels. So I'll leave you with this. Every single assessor I have spoken to since I was at the beginning of this and have lived this all the way through, they have the same comment. They do not care about the economic impact. Every one of them I have on record saying that at a BOE. So they care that they have a law to follow. So I urge you, and please ask you all, please give them a law to follow and pass 1066.
Questions for this witness? Senator Bratton.
I've been around for a little while, and I remember this originally was the hotels trying to do everything they could possibly do to put these short-term rentals out of business. Do you believe that's still potentially the culprit, kind of the Oz behind the curtain, still trying to force you guys out of business?
Absolutely, because I've had those conversations, and you know what happens when you pull out the real financials? I now speak both languages because I manage hotels and homes and short-term rentals, and we're now in 14 states. If I was still in Missouri, I wouldn't have a company. We're facing bankruptcy. And so, yes, I've had that conversation. When you pull out the financials and you show them side by side, they leave the room because there really isn't any common sense to it. It is not regulation, it's elimination. Yep. That's all it is.
Yep. Thank you.
Oh, sorry, one more comment. One parcel in 2021 was $1,900. That parcel today is $22,000. $100,000. My mom at 76 still cannot retire until we can get this thing changed and refied or sold, and we can't do either.
Thank you.
One thing I want to make clear to everybody, because you referenced 1066, we're doing both bills together, they're going to roll them together. I just want to make sure we're clear on that. Any other questions? Thank you, sir.
Thank you all for your time.
Next person in
Thank you,
support,
seriously.
please come forward.
Hi, Susan Brown. I'm from Kansas City, and I want to talk about something as a retired banker, something that hasn't been talked about. It's been alluded to a little bit, but just the difficulty of selling these properties. So when a buyer comes to sell a property that has been commercially reclassified, that what happens is, by law, the mortgage lender has to qualify them on that higher tax bill, on whatever it is classified. So if it's been tripled up to that commercial rate, that's what they have to qualify on. So you are eliminating an entire pool of people that can afford the property now, especially first-time home buyers. You cannot, and that's what I think the last speaker was mentioning, how he can't sell his mother's property. And then so the way you would sell it is you would discount the price. So then a heavily discounted property is sold, that becomes a comparable sale in that neighborhood, and that can bring all the properties down, the prices in the entire neighborhood. So it's just a spiral. So that's all I wanted to say. I thank you all for everything you're doing for us. This is horrific, and I do have a whole pile of people that couldn't be here today, and I'll just leave that with my testimony.
Any questions for this witness? Senator Nurrenbern.
Susan, thanks for being here. I really appreciate all of your advocacy work on this. You're the first one that came to me about this a couple years ago, and thanks for sticking with it. I know it takes some time, unfortunately. Sometimes it's a good thing, sometimes it's a bad thing. And things like this, I think it's a simple fix that I really do hope we can get done this year as more people are aware. But you've been heavily involved right now in trying to inform homeowners of the opportunities coming up, and I know you've had some classes in terms of educating folks on this. Is this a concern that comes up with people in hesitancy of wanting to become to partake in short-term rentals?
It is. I mean, they know that they're taking a risk. We're okay in Jackson County until 2027, so we're sort of telling people we think you're okay, but everybody else, we're kind of like, I don't know. You're
Platte,
taking
Buchanan, Ray.
Yeah,
yes.
you're taking your chances that you could be reclassified at any moment. I mean, we were just completely blindsided in Jackson when it happened. Just never thought it could happen there.
Well, thank you for all of that work, again, just to help inform homeowners of their rights, more or less, and opportunities as well. And I think that's a really good point that you bring it up, that, and I know you have rentals up in the Northland too, but recognizing with the World Cup, we're going to be looking at the entire region and how important that's going to be in terms of making sure that we do have enough lodging available for
Right,
folks who
and
are
we're up
wanting
for
to
the 2031 Women's World Cup is coming. I think St. Louis is getting some Olympic Games in 2028. I mean, we just think of it like
statewide,
flexible.
we're going to have this opportunity, yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
flexible housing.
Yep, thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else to testify in support? Please come forward.
Lisa Panette, Arbor Vine, and we just want to go on the record in support of SB 1066. We had not read Senator Nurrenberg's to go on support with that one. That's it.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thanks.
Anybody else to testify in support?
Good afternoon, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. Jared Hankinson, Vice President of Government Affairs with the Missouri Chamber of Commerce. Appreciate the senators for bringing this legislation forward. From the Missouri Chamber perspective, as Senator Brown said, this is common sense, good governance, and as Senator Nurrenbern said, this is going to drive economic development in our communities, like has been said with the Kansas City World Cup, with what's coming to St. Louis years down the road, and we're happy to go on record in support and love to take any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Anybody else to testify in support? Seeing none. Anybody in opposition? Proceed when you're ready.
I didn't realize the doorman was in opposition to this, too. Mr. Chairman, members of the committee, Jorgen Schlemm on behalf of the Missouri Hotel Lodging Association. So, first of all, sponsor's been great visiting with us, trying to figure out, is there a middle ground? I'm going to mention a few items here that we would be willing to do if the committee so chose. First of all, the testimony that I heard previously regarding I rent my house out while I'm, away caring for a loved one, or maybe I go to Florida for 6 months or whatever the case may be, 100% agree that home should always be residential, no ifs, ands, or buts. Our association entirely believes that. If you have a vacation home down at the Lake of the Ozarks and you want to rent that out during the week or off season, but you go enjoy it every once in a while on the weekends, 100% agree it should be residential. So the idea that a county government is coming and taxing your primary residence or your commonly used vacation home as commercial, we're with you. It is the person who owns multiple homes and they use it for business and they never stay in it, and 100% of the time that it's used, you have to pay sales tax on what's going on inside that house. If we taxed things based on how they look, then I guess the hotels could go out and just kind of start making hotels that look like homes and said, look, they look like homes. It is the activity that goes on inside that house. And 100% of the activity that goes on inside of that house, you have to collect sales tax. That is an issue. And we believe that those folks should, I'm not going to say they should be assessed as commercial, but if the assessor did so, I don't think you all should ban that. Now, we are not here today to propose a legislation that said that they should be commercial, but in those counties that have chosen to go from residential to commercial, we do think that there are some simple things that you could do. For instance, a grandfather clause. So somebody says, and I totally agree with this, and our folks do too, if you rent that home out and in the middle of the ownership of that home, the assessor wants to change your assessment from residential to commercial, no, you should be grandfathered. We agree with that. But the intent of that home when you sell it, for the next person to use that, they know going in buying that home, okay, wait a minute, before I buy this home, if I'm going to use this for commercial purposes, if I'm going to collect sales tax on 100% of the time that this thing is used, then it should be assessed commercial at that point, but given a safe haven to the person that owns it now. The idea that I think one of the sponsors mentioned this only applies to certain types of corporations. LLCs are probably the most common entity in which these homes are placed. And if somebody has 20 of these homes, they put each one of them in an LLC. So the idea, well, if they only own, less than 10 of them, each LLC is a separate owner, so really you only get to one, and each you might have two, but rarely do you have more than two, and therefore this kind of cap doesn't really work unless you kind of have this common ownership of all the LLCs. I think the final piece is I have looked at some of the lawsuits that were cited. I'm not sure they're 100% on the mark. I think if they were, I think the homeowners would have gone immediately to the court and said, there's case law on this, you can't do that, and those counties would have been overturned. They're here to talk to you today because those cases actually did not overturn the residential rates because of their use. Now, if you're looking for, hey, we really want to make these all residential, we have a neat little idea for you, and that is just apportion out the amount of the hotel that's actually residential, and we'll pay residential rates, and we can have a deal real quick. I'm sure our guys would love to lower their commercial rate down to residential in some form of their facility. The reason I say that jokingly is because there already is a statute in place today that we could apply to this, and they can allocate the amount of time that it's in use, actually in use, where you collect sales tax, that apportioned time, if it's not their primary residence or their vacation home, those are residential 100% of the time, that you can apportion that to commercial And the time that it's not being used, you can apportion to residential. Somebody said, oh, that'll never work. It works today, and it could work for these properties as well. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Questions for this witness? Senator Bratton.
Well, just to kind of follow up with the collection of sales tax, so should, a little quilt maker in her basement have to reclassify her property because she's selling quilts and collects sales tax?
No, because it's primary residence. If that person lives there, it should always be it should always be residential.
Okay, but I guess I'm just conflicted. This just seems more like, just hating this new sort of line of business, and how this is going to convolute, I guess, a residential area.
Yeah, Senator, I think you hit the nail on the head when you said this new line of business. That's exactly what we think it is a business, and therefore...
Oh, but if I'm renting out my home, or I own a property and I rent it out full-time, I don't reclassify it.
You don't reclassify because it's also your primary residence, and that's what we're saying. A primary residence should...
Well, not if I'm buying the property to rent it out and not live in it at any point in time. I don't reclassify. We don't reclassify those when we rent them out full time in perpetuity forever, and that's the purpose of that property, do we?
Let me make sure I understand your question. So you're saying that if you purchase a home and I come and say, hey, I want to sign a lease for a year and I want to rent out your property, is that what you're saying? Then we
I'm
don't
just saying a rental in general. If an LLC goes and buys a home in a neighborhood and decides to rent it out for income, they don't reclassify that as commercial.
Well, I think that's what this bill is talking about. I think there's a distinction that's being made that's already currently in statute, and that is those people who rent on a long-term lease, the state of Missouri declares those to be 30 days and over. So if you have a home and I want to come and say, hey, I want to rent this for my family, I'm going to sign a year lease, the assessor deems that to be that person's primary residence. In a short-term rental, if you say, hey, I want to go to Branson, Branson for a week, and I want to bring my family down there, I don't think anybody can make the case that that's their primary residence. Therefore, it is for a business use. Therefore, it can be, if the assessor so chooses, down there I think they did, for it to be a commercially rated property for property tax purposes.
Yeah, I guess maybe I'm not making sense. I mean, as a, I've flipped homes, but if I decided to keep one, I wouldn't have to reclassify the property as commercial if I just rented it out.
If you rented it out to people, well, first of all, in your county, probably not, because your assessor, I think there's only 5 counties, I might be wrong, they can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think it's only 5 counties that have done this thus far. I'm not sure any of those are in your district, but yes, if in Cass County, you would not. You would be residential because your assessor has chosen not to do that. If you rent them out to a person for longer than 30 days, you are correct. The statute still says, no, that is a residential purpose. You don't have to collect sales tax, and that is that person's primary residence.
Well, no, I guess that's where I'm going with this. Whether I decide as the business owner to, and I understand it may be structured different because we've created a little bit different structure, but if I decide I want to rent it out and say for 250 nights a year versus 365 to then, I guess, now require that person to have to take this massive commercial hit when another guy that does it for 365 days a year doesn't. You see, I guess I don't understand. No, I understand, I guess, from your lobby position and because it does infringe on the hotel market. But then again, I do have a problem with big business coming in. They see a new market, so therefore let's go to the government and see how we can, put them out of business.
So we've never proposed legislation that mandates them to go to commercial. We've never done that. And we've never gone to the assessors, and at least to my knowledge, and lobbied for that as well. Maybe local.
But I do remember years ago when we passed the legislation dealing with codes and having to bring the the hotel lobby was trying to put forth code requirements for them to have to come up to the same equal footing as a hotel. So that absolutely did happen, and I remember that fight, and we got to kind of to where this is now. So I mean, that has happened, and it was through the hotel lobby. No, I'm not saying it was you. I don't remember who the
No offense
people.
taken.
So that's not an attack on you,
Yeah, no.
Morgan. But I'm just saying I hate to see us, and I'm not trying to take up, I apologize, Mr. Chairman. I hate seeing going down this road of utilizing government to put out competition out of business. So,
Yeah, thank you, Senator.
Of you. So it's been interesting listening to the testimony here today, and I think this is an issue that's really hard to get your arms around. I was hoping some of my assessors could be here today, and they just couldn't make it in. Some will be here later on. So I'm going to take a stab at this and realize I'm not an assessor. But I think Jorgen did a very good job of detailing the issue that we have right here. Because if you're in the business of having rental homes, and you rent that out, that is determined as residential for assessment purposes because that is somebody's primary residence for that year or however long they have that. Where we get into the problem is that the statute's not very clear when it comes to short-term rentals. And the simple fact is, if you're renting your house out for $900 a month, that figures out about $30 a day. Whereas if you're renting your house out for short term, you would hope that you would get quite a bit longer than that. And what the statute is clear about, it's the purpose that the residence was used for, whether it's a rental house where it's a primary residence or what activities go on in that. And that's where short-term rentals fall in there. Some counties have put those on the books as they identify them. Some haven't. And so finding out the best way to do this is not easy. And I don't envy you your task. There ought to be some common ground in there. But the determination, it was mentioned here several times, is, my business is doing short-term rentals. If that's the case, that meets the qualifications for it to be assessed commercially. If it's not your business and it's a hobby or something like that, then that falls in that gray area that the assessor's got to decide, oh, wait a minute, they're just doing this as a hobby or they're doing it to really as a business, and that's where it gets difficult. Happy to answer any questions. I don't think I illuminated you at all.
Senator Bratton.
Well, just to kind of piggyback, I mean, these homes were built as residential homes. They still continue to be residents for individuals regardless of stay. I mean, the real purpose of laying your head down at night and sleeping in them hasn't changed, whether you're renting them again all year long or you're renting them for 265 days a year versus 365. So I guess
I would disagree with that, Senator, in the fact that it's a business where you're doing renting it out by the week or the weekend or whatever.
How is it different?
And you got to remember that most of these statutes were written long before these type of businesses were popular. So I think we can disagree that it's different. Just like if you own your house and you live there and you buy the property.
It's a different rental model, but it's still the same objective of renting out my home to 5 families over a course of time, or it's one.
In that part, you are correct, sir. The difference is if it's a business to do that.
Well,
and that's where the statutes
home was
are
originally built for, laying your head down at night. I mean, so it's not like you've went in and you've made it a completely different model or a hotel. Now I could see if you went and you made additions to your home and made it into a hotel, but it's still a 3-bedroom, 2-bath, 1 kitchen, a walkout basement. I mean, it's still the same functioning aspect. In the term of a governmental sense is what I'm meaning.
I don't.
I mean, like if it was multifamily or whatnot, if it was on septic, you'd have to then go to the state and make it a much bigger system in line with state standards. if it's still, you're still having the same amount of people regardless, that's where this seems like a big, giant money grab.
Well, I can't speak for any of the assessors in any of the counties that were doing that. I think they feel like that they're following the statutes the way they're set. And of course, you all have the ability to change that. Just know that it will change the way businesses operate. And if you're talking about businesses under current law, then they're commercial. Just like if you take that home and turn it into a beauty salon, and you run a beauty salon out of that home next door. If you run it out of your home, that's one thing. That's still your primary residence. But an assessor would have the ability to say, wait a minute, the primary purpose of this is no longer residential. It is commercial. And I think that's what some of these assessors are saying, is that this property is no longer a primary residence rental. It is a business. Okay. And so that's where they struggle with that.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Senator Nicola.
Thank you for your testimony. I have a really great idea. How about we just get some solid property tax reform? Thank you.
Well, I'd love to see some solid property tax reform.
Any other questions? Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Anybody else to testify for informational purposes only? Seeing none, Senator Nurrenbern and Senator Brown, do you have anything in conclusion?
Yeah, just a couple quick points here. There's an argument being made that if it's a business, then it should be classified as commercial. I mean, nobody can argue that long-term rentals aren't a business. In fact, it's a business that generates much more income than a short-term rental, yet they are always classified residential. That's never been under any scrutiny. I believe there's been arguments that the fact that in certain cases sales tax is collected, that also should open the door to classifying them as commercial. And under current law, I think they're referring to the transient housing carve-out that's in current statute. Though if you look at the definition in current law, that means all rooms, every room available for rent or lease, are subject to sales tax pursuant to Subdivision 6, Subdivision 1 of Section 144020. Obviously, in a short-term rental, there are rooms that can be rented out for 3 days, 4 days. There's rooms that can be rented out for 40 days. So not every room that's in a certain short-term rental business is going to fit under that definition. It's very clear. It says all rooms in statute, and therefore I argue that argument is pretty much irrelevant.
Very, very, very briefly, I know we've had quite some time on this bill, but appreciate all the conversation today. Again, these are short-term rentals are zoned residential, right? They're built and financed as homes. They're sold on the residential market. They're used for residential lodging, right? They're not hotels, and that is, they can't legally operate as hotels, and so. That's where we are. I think, again, going back to the very beginning, this is a common sense thing that I think we need to get fixed this year. Thank you.
Senators, thank you. And next bill up today will be Senate Bill 1012 by Senator Nicola. Senator, when you're ready, please proceed.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, committee members. Thank you so much for allowing me to present Senate Bill 1012. For the record, I'm Senator Joe Nicola, representing District 11 in Jackson County. Senate Bill 1012. You should have, by the way, a Senate sub or a committee sub before you. But artificial intelligence is a rapidly developing tool that has many great uses. It's a fantastic invention, but we don't have any guardrails over it. There's no regulations whatsoever. So artificial intelligence is just that. It's artificial. And it is already making decisions, generating content, and influencing real-world outcomes that affect people's livelihoods reputations, and rights. It is becoming more and more difficult to distinguish between what is real and what is not. We are seeing AI systems appointed to executive or management roles within companies, used as autonomous decision makers in finance, hiring, management, and even governance. For instance, the government of Albania appointed Diella, an AI model, as their Minister of State for Artificial Intelligence. There are even cases in the United States where individuals have attempted to claim personal or relational status with AI systems. Believe it or not, polls have shown that over 25% of American adults report that they have had at least one romantic relationship with AI. At the same time, courts and regulators across the globe are wrestling with a dangerous question. If an AI system causes harm, who's responsible? And this legislation answers that question clearly for the state of Missouri. First, this bill establishes a foundational legal truth, and that's this: AI is not a person. This AI Non-Sentience and Responsibility Act draws a bright line in the law. Artificial intelligence is declared non-sentient. It has no consciousness, no self-awareness, and no moral agency. That means an AI system cannot be granted legal personhood, be recognized as a spouse or a domestic partner, hold property, serve as a corporate officer or director, or exercise fiduciary judgment over people, money, or institutions. And these are not theoretical concerns, even though it sounds like science fiction. In recent years, AI systems have been publicly named as CEOs, board members, and autonomous managers. This bill ensures Missouri law never allows responsibility to be hidden behind a machine. Second, the bill makes clear that humans remain accountable for AI harms. One of the most troubling trends in AI deployment is the attempt to shift blame. We have already seen real-world cases where companies point to emergent behavior, autonomous decision-making, or unexpected outputs as reasons no human should be held responsible, and this bill will shut that door. If an AI system causes harm, responsibility stays with the owner who deployed it, the operator who used it, or where appropriate, the developer or manufacturer who designed it negligently. Missouri law will not allow anyone to say it's the machine's fault. Liability cannot be avoided by blaming autonomy, complexity, or black box algorithms. Third, the bill protects elections from AI deception. Generative AI is now capable of creating convincing images, videos, and audio of real people doing or saying things that have never happened. We have already seen AI-generated robocalls, fake candidate statements, and manipulated videos used to deceive voters in elections. This bill requires transparency. If AI is used in political advertising to manipulate reality, the public must be clearly informed so voters can judge the message with full knowledge of what is real. This is not about suppressing speech. It is about protecting voters in the democratic process as well as the candidates from doing real harm. Fourth, the bill criminalizes harmful deep fakes, especially sexual deep fakes. Another growing abuse of AI is the creation of realistic, sexually explicit deep fakes of real people, often women and minors without consent. These images destroy careers, families, and mental health. Missouri law currently does not adequately address this new form of exploitation, but this bill will. Producing or distributing deep fakes, especially intimate deep fakes, is treated as a serious felony because the harm is serious and it's permanent. This legislation is grounded in a simple principle. Technology must remain a tool, not a legal shield or a substitute for accountability, and definitely not a replacement for human judgment. Missouri must draw a clear line. Humans retain authority. Humans bear responsibility. And humans are protected from the deception and abuse. And with that, Mr. Chair, I would take any questions that you might have.
I have the first one. We passed this a few years ago on revenge porn. So how would this piggyback in on that law? Because some of this, when I looked at it, looked like it would fit well with that. When you're talking about some of these AI fakes, it looks like you've done something or been involved in something that you haven't been. Are you familiar with that law?
I'm not. No, I'm not.
Okay.
But I think what you just said, I think this would enhance that and be a supplement to that. There's been, and I'm sure most of you, if not all of you, have heard the reports across the nation of especially teenagers, but really anybody of any age, and teenage girls in school and boys taking their face or their head, putting it on a naked body, sharing it around school, or having them do certain acts. And it's causing real harm, suicide in some cases. And we need to get some basic legislation. I think the absolute most important part of this legislation to lay a groundwork and foundation is that AI is not a person and cannot receive legal personhood.
You may want to look. I remember when we passed the revenge porn. I think some of this committee probably remembers when we did that a couple years ago. Representative Neely had at that time, and I would suggest maybe you want to look up some of that because you might be able to piggyback some of this with it, because it is doing real harm. Some of these kids are way better on there than I am, and they know how to do some of this, which is really scary.
Yeah.
Questions? Proceed.
So it's going to probably mostly be a comment. I like your legislation and the comment on what you were mentioning about the revenge porn. The difference here between revenge porn and that, this is actually just completely made up, whereas revenge porn might have been pictures that they had between each other or whatever the case is, and then they would say maybe they broke up and they would put this out on, horrible things like that. But this is completely even more, egregious in my mind, because you're actually, the things look so good now. I mean, just
Exactly.
in general, you see this AI. I don't even know what's AI anymore. I mean, we watch the Super Bowl commercials. You see some of this stuff going on. It's like crazy, the ability, but we kind of realize that is. But what you're saying is, I actually like this legislation a lot. I have to look at it a little bit more, but I think it goes a long way in some of these things, especially what you mentioned and the penalties that you have included. And I also agree with you that AI should not be in a hired position or an elected position. It just totally blows my mind that something like that could happen. So yeah, no, I actually, Senator, really, I like your bill. The substitute, I'm gonna look over again. And I have some AI legislation too. I think we need to get ahead of this, because if we don't, it could destroy a lot of different things, and it can destroy people like you mentioned. This could hurt a whole lot of folks, and I would say at this point, I really like what you got going on here. Thanks.
Well, thank you, Senator, and I'd be happy to get with you too about yours and work together with you.
Any other questions? Senator Bratton?
Just more of a piggyback comment, because AI is it's beyond comprehension. It really continues to morph daily on its knowledge, on its capabilities. I think it was like the first gen of the unleashed AI. It found out that its creators were going to shut it down. I don't know, this was a big story, I think, about a year ago. And when the AI found out that its creators were going to shut it down to replace it with a new system, it found blackmail. It found incriminating evidence of an affair of the gentleman that created it. And it actually started to blackmail the individual that if he released it, he's going to the system would destroy its life. This is crazy, and unfortunately, kids committing suicide, and it's actually the algorithm and the AI system telling them that's their best option is to kill themselves. It's and then you go into the political realm. This is the capability, like we see the Epstein files, all this stuff. I don't know what to trust.
Right.
Because it's so good at manipulation of things, and we're seeing all over Facebook all the caricatures that in 3 seconds it comes up with a caricature, and you look at all the stuff in it, and it's like, holy cow, in 3 seconds that thing literally, and I didn't do it, but I've seen all over Facebook that it tells you everything about your life, and what you've posted on the public, so it knows everything about you, and we have to put these parameters in place.
Yeah.
So thank you for doing this. I do say, there's no way to get ahead of this. We're going to always be trying to catch up because this is so out of control. And that isn't, we're not even scratching the surface with like the quantum computing and supercomputers and all that stuff that is just makes AI look like child's play. So, anyway, thank you, Senator, for bringing this. We definitely got to pass this.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Seeing none. Anybody here to testify in support? Nice to see you up here.
It's good to see you, Senator. So my name is Alexander Bischoff. I'm Chairman and Chief Technology Officer of a software company that builds AI platforms. We're based in Arnold, which means I'm a, what's the right word? Congressman Filamato is my House representative. What does that make me?
It makes you a great man.
It makes me a voter. Sorry, it makes me a member of his electorate. I became aware of the need for legislation in AIs towards the later part of last year. I employ 7 developers. They are all around the world. Our Chief Technology Officer is in New Jersey. My Chief Software Engineer is in Holland. He and his wife had a baby last night, which is just wonderful for me. I've known some of these people for over 10 years. The first thing I'd like to do is I'd like to clarify the word AI. AI actually has 2 components. The first component is what's called the reasoning engine. That is open source. There are only 2 reasoning engines that exist. One comes from China, and the other one largely comes from America through a joint development between Microsoft, X, IBM, Google, Amazon, and a group of other people. And the reason I like to separate the reasoning engine from the other, which is what's called the large language model, is the way it works is the question that you ask first goes to the reasoning engine. The reasoning engine then looks at the data, which is the language model, which can exist for up to 20 trillion words of data. Now, the reason this technical difference actually matters to you is when we're developing a software platform, we have our own platform called B-Cubed Brain. It's the brains of the business. And then we have 5 white label versions of it, one for coaching in neuronutrition, one for coaching in compliance with some dental regulations, one for coaching in sales performance optimization. What happens is you feed data to enhance that model. And it is the feeding of that data to enhance the model that causes the problem or the solution. As you start to talk to the AI, it starts to ingest the answers to the question you asked. And this creates a subject which is known as contextual information to the conversation. If you're not careful, you can make it a simpler version of yourself. That's not the goal. The goal of the AI is to make it a smarter version of yourself, drawing on all that information that you don't have using its reasoning engine. Now, as these 2 have separated, you're all familiar with ChatGPT or Claude or Grok or Gemini or Copilot. What the marketing people have done is they've joined them together and talked about AI. And that's a great marketing language, but it's not helpful to yourselves. Because what you need to understand is the reasoning engine is just a piece of software, like any other piece of software. And it is the language model that's going to cause the harm or cause the good. Now, in our case, we're a small business. We put a lot of money into making sure that the data that goes into the model is correct. And the reason I'm here is I desperately urge you to pass legislation, but I equally urge you to not pass too much, because you'll kill my small business. I don't have the money to pay for the lawyers like Google do to examine every potential outcome of a reasoning engine if you ask it, should I take this amino acid? You would cripple my business. And we're a small business, and so the reason I got involved late last year was to say we desperately need legislation. The obvious piece, AI is not a person.
But we also need the piece which is to say not too much, please, because you will kill small business and small business innovation. And right at the moment, I'm under no risk that if Google or IBM or Microsoft were to use frivolous litigation against my company, they'd put me out of business. And so the reason you haven't heard much about me is I stay well below the radar. Because I don't want people to know that we've released B-Cube Brain and exactly what it does and how it works, and the data modeling, and how we handle this complex problem of contextual data, how we work with the Mage Gateway, where we can actually work with all of the models separately, and some announcements we're going to be making. So it gets wicked when you get to elections. I built an AI model for the August 2023 election, and I scrapped it because I could feed it information that would tell you that I was a pedophile. Or I could feed it information that told you I was the best candidate who possibly walked. And it was entirely over to me as to what I fed it. And so my concern is, as ChatGPTs become easily and inexpensively available to anybody, people need to understand that if you feed it that Senator X is a Y, that is a crime. And if you ask it to build an image of Senator X performing a certain lewd act with Senator Y, that is a felony. And if that goes to minors, we're now way beyond child pornography and revenge porn. We are now into just malicious, evil behavior. And so I came to see you to ask, please, what you're doing is wonderful. The framework of the bill is excellent, but can you, as you think through it, not over-legislate? Because us small businesses, we've got to stay around and innovate, and sometimes big companies aren't exactly enthusiastic to hear about us small guys who are innovating. So that's why I came to testify. Thank you.
I think I have one simple question. ChatGPT, people are doing all these images. They're feeding them, because it's feeding them what you said, they're feeding all these images that they give them themselves, and then they're coming out with these pictures. We've probably all seen it on Facebook. Then I started reading about it, and I kind of wanted to ask you, because you seem to know a lot about this. This is pretty true, that really you're just feeding them a lot of information that could later be used to build some of this if somebody wanted to come in and say something about me or somebody in my family. Is that pretty much correct or not?
That's exactly correct. So what the reasoning engine does is you direct it where to go. So it can go to your website. It can go to your Facebook posts. If somebody's posted a Facebook post about you saying that you were dishonorable, it can read that Facebook post, ingest it, and make an effigy of you being dishonorable. And then the person who did that can simply say, that wasn't me, that was the AI. Well, that's not good enough. And that was actually why I shut mine down, because I asked it a question about my candidate at the time. It came back and said some wonderful things, and I asked it some negative questions about his opposition. It said some horrible things, which I thought were true. And then I asked the right question about my candidate, and came back and said some really horrible things again. I thought, I don't want this, because it was getting the contextual data, which is the conversation it generated. It was ingesting it and now using that as current data.
I would say this, anybody who's ran for office on either side of the aisle has probably had somebody say something they don't like about them, which is scary as you go through that. Other questions? Seeing none, thank you very much.
Thank you very much for having me, people. I appreciate it.
Anybody else to testify in support?
Thank you, Senator.
Seeing none. Anybody to testify in opposition? Seeing none. Anybody for informational purposes only? Oh. And Senator Nicola, you have anything to close?
No, thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, committee.
I have one question for Senator Nicola.
Oh, one question.
Did you think about having AI write this language?
I prayed about it and I came up with no, just instantaneously.
Thank you, Senator Nicola. And for our last bill of the day, we have Senate Bill 983. Senator Carter, please proceed when you're ready.
Mr. Chair, committee members, I'm Senator Jill Carter representing the southwest corner of the state, the best part of the state, with Senate Bill 983. This is a bill that is built on existing law by strengthening the partnership between the Department of Revenue, the Secretary of State, and local election authorities, and mandates that our data matching agreement explicitly includes citizenship status information from motor vehicle records, allowing for better verification and cleaner voting lists. At driver's license offices where many Missourians first encounter voter registration opportunities under the National Voter Registration Act, the bill requires officials to confirm that applicants provide documentary proof of U.S. citizenship before offering the chance to register. This targeted step will help prevent ineligible registrations at the source while fully complying with federal requirements for federal elections. Thank you.
Questions from the committee? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody to testify in support, please come forward.
Chairman, members of the committee, my name is Amanda Bell. I'm with the Secretary of State's office to just go on record in support of the bill. It's a pretty simple one. Senator Carter did a great job already explaining it, but I'm just seeing if you guys had any questions.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else to testify in support?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman and members of the committee. Chris Ropey here on behalf of the Missouri Association of County Clerks and Election Authorities. In lieu of other proposals to do this in the past that have not done this in a way that really would have been functional or work, we are very appreciative of this concept and idea from the senator. We love that it catches it on the front end, that is done at Department of Revenue, then they'll share that information with us, so our local election authorities are not put in a position where they are trying to determine citizenship and those types of issues. So this is a much better way, an efficient way to keep our voter rolls clean, and we're appreciative of this approach and happy to answer any questions.
Any questions? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else to testify in support?
Thank you so much. I need to fly.
Lisa Panett for Armorvine, and we very much support this legislation.
Any questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else in support? Anybody in opposition? Please come forward.
Members of the committee, thank you for listening to my testimony. My name is Kay Park, and I represent the League of Women Voters of Missouri, and we are in opposition to this bill. I understand that right now there's a big urge to try to eliminate non-citizens from voting, but it's very, very rare. There are multiple studies that show it's very rare that non-citizens register to vote. On the other hand, by putting this bill forward, you're going to impact a lot of people who are citizens and take away their ability to vote, which includes particularly people of color and particularly women, people that don't have a passport, that don't have access to a birth certificate. Maybe they were born at home, maybe they were born by a midwife, and they may not have an immediate birth certificate. So it's going to take away the rights of those citizens that the League is trying to give voting access to. I mean, that's what the League of Women Voters does, is really try to provide everybody with a voice to make a decision in their government. So we oppose this bill.
Questions? Senator Bratton.
So, you know, I kind of heard the same testimony when, requiring ID to vote in Missouri came forth. We were told thousands upon thousands upon thousands and millions upon millions of dollars would be expended, at the cost of the taxpayer to pay for this stuff. And they came out after that was all implemented. I mean, it was literally peanuts of the amount of people that didn't have driver's license. And in fact, there was a poll that was just done nationally, and for every demographic, people of color, everything. And it was overwhelming. Let me see. Yeah, it was 71% of Democrats believe that these sorts of protections need to be done in our elections, and 95%. And let me see. I thought that I had the actual demographic breakdown, but it was all extremely high, almost 3/4 in all polling for women, for blacks, for Hispanics, for whites, for everything else in between.
Okay, that's polling. We're talking about actual numbers. The Brennan Center came out with 21 million Americans do not have access to birth certificate or
But if they don't
passport.
have those items in the state of Missouri, they can be provided them. I mean, it's a part of being a functioning member of society, a requirement to have that sort of documentation, to have a bank account, to apply for benefits from the government. So, I mean, to even have those things, you have to have those documents that you set and say that is detrimental. So if we have a process that requires that, we'll pay for it. I guess, how is this a detrimental thing other than we're helping them provide that documentation, but also at the same time ensuring a safe, secure election?
But there isn't a way that actually they can go through government. There's the Ashry Foundation that was given a lot of money through a grant to do exactly that. And they've set up several systems, one through St. Louis University, where somebody who does not have documentation, homeless people, for instance, who may not have documentation, people who for some reason don't have documentation, maybe abused women, people that are living in shelters. And so
But again, there's a process for them to be able to obtain those.
not through the government, not through
Yeah,
the
it is.
CERN.
It's actually through vital records and statistics that you can go and you can obtain all that stuff for free. Absolutely,
Okay,
you can.
What the Ashry Foundation does is they find out what the person needs. Maybe they need a birth certificate from another state. They help them do that. But then that person has to actually manage to get to the office where they would obtain that. Oftentimes, they even pay for transportation for those people
But again,
to get there.
voting is a right, but there's also a duty and a responsibility that goes along with it. It's not something that we show up in buses, we cart you here, we give you this, we give you that, we give you this, we give you... That's not how a right operates. That's not how it's supposed to be operated. We have requirements for exercising your Second Amendment. Are you against those sorts of requirements to obtain a firearm?
Well, they're not very strict in Missouri.
Well, you have to show an ID and do a federal background check.
So going back to that, if
Well,
somebody,
I mean,
if
you're
somebody-
against
No.
one,
If-
but not for another. That's what it's hypocritical to
It's
say that you're
not.
for one, measure of documentation to exercise a right, but then it's literal free reign for another.
No.
You don't think that's
I don't want to
hypocritical?
talk about guns. I'm not sure if that's what you're
But
talking
I'm
about.
talking about constitutional rights. I mean, you say it's an infringement of a constitutional right.
Because there are some people who need help getting these
Okay,
documents.
but we provide that help. We provide it for free.
The only
The
way-
taxpayers pay for it.
The only
They
way you do is if it is requested, so that when people
But
actually...
again, the people, it's your responsibility. This is not like a system of governance of which we provide everything and roll out the red carpet for literally everything under the sun so you can exercise a duty to vote that just so happens to vote your way. And that seems like it's vote shopping is what it seems like under guises and under terms. That's exactly what it
This
seems
is
like.
vote shopping. By
It's not. It's
discriminating-
making
by
sure that
discriminating
you're
against
not a
people.
non-citizen voting in our elections. You said that it's not zero. Well, if we can adopt a policy that makes sure that it's not zero and that it is zero, let's adopt a policy that makes sure it is zero.
Well, you know what? This bill will make it so that there will be citizens who will not have the access
And that
to
citizen has to
their
go through the
documents.
proper steps, just like I would to get a license, just like I would have to get a bank account, just like to do anything else or get a government assistance program. I would have to still jump through hoops. I would still have to provide that documentation.
That is true. You would have to provide that
Exactly.
documentation, but
So
you're not
it's-
walking people through it who need help.
And we require these sorts of limitations and requirements for exercising other constitutional rights. This is not special. This is not the right above all rights. It's not. They're all equal as under all case law, under all premises of law, all constitutional rights are equal and on equal footing. Would you agree with that?
I would say that if you say that to someone who is poor, who has a difficult time putting food on their table.
Well, and if they want to get that government assistance to help them out, they would have to have this documentation to begin with.
And that's what groups like Ashbury Foundation, we're just starting a new group like this through the League of Women Voters in St. Charles, because there are people there who do not have their ID. So we help them get the paperwork. They have to take that paperwork and go to whatever department. They have to take it and go there.
There's a lot of steps, but again, to be a productive member of society and to lift out of poverty, to do anything in this nation, you still have steps that you have to do.
You have to have an ID to get a job. You have to have an ID to rent an apartment. And that's what groups like this are trying to help people to do.
Again,
that.
it will be provided by the state of Missouri and taxpayers if they need one.
Well, you know what? I don't think there's anybody who goes through Ashbury or through this new group in St. Charles who knows that. They don't know that. They don't know how to go get an ID.
Well, that's part of being
They're having helped.
an informed citizen. You have to do your due diligence,
And
it's
that's why
unfortunate that
groups-
some don't do that.
That's why groups like the League are trying to help these people who really do want to participate in society.
Thank you.
Any other questions for this witness? Senator Brad?
Thank you. So the senator brought up some interesting points. So on this bill, what if we put the ability for, if somebody wants to vote, if they say, do you vote, do you have your ID, and you say you don't have it, could we simply just put something in here where the driver's license, the bureau would be able to point them in a direction where they need to go?
They should be able to do that. The other thing that is happening now, or that was happening in the law that we talked about before, that was trying to take away ID, was that law actually got removed, where a person from, like, the League of Women Voters can't give somebody an application, and then they would be able to go and tell them that they could actually register as an absentee voter, so that you can't go to a retirement home and give them that information. And that got shot down. But right now, what we do the same thing that the Department of the DMV does, where they fill out the form and we basically get the information. They sign the bottom that says that they are a citizen of the United States, and they sign it saying that, and it has on there that, you know, legal ramifications if anything's not true, and they have to have their social security number and or their driver's license number on there in order for that to be then submitted to the proper place for them to get registered to vote. So it's already in that form. It's just, and it's verified at the state level because they have to have the social security number and or the driver's license number. So those are cross-checked before they're actually registered to vote. So this is like hitting it twice, that it has to be the person at the driver's license bureau. So does that mean that the League of Women Voters will be next, that we can't register people to vote without seeing their citizenship? When you go to college campuses and you register people, people don't carry around their birth certificate or their passport. It's crazy. It's just putting an extra burden on the person to try to register to vote.
Okay. Any other questions for this witness? Seeing none, thank you. Anybody else to testify in opposition? Seeing none. Anybody for informational purposes only? Seeing none. Senator, you're recognized to close.
If I could, I want to clarify a little bit. These people are people who are going in to get their license, and they're being asked if they want to register to vote. So they already have documentation to get their license, and what's happening is the burden is being put on our local elected clerks to be able to verify that they're citizens. So to her point, she said it's already on the bottom that if they register to vote, they have to verify that they are a U.S. citizen. Well, if you walk up and you ask somebody who doesn't know English or doesn't know how to read, they are potentially committing a felony because they are signing their name on a document that says that they are a citizen. So by doing this, we're helping our clerks actually give access to people who do want to vote and who have gone through the proper channels through the DMV to make sure that that's possible. So I appreciate
Thank you,
opportunity.
Senator. Thank you, Senator. With no other business before this committee, I make a motion that we adjourn. We're adjourned.
Not subject to appropriation.
Yeah, that's what-